right, welcome to the City Council meeting at 6 p.m. Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. And we do have a quorum. And let's go ahead and pray. Dear Lord, we ask for your presence tonight, and we want to thank you for us all being together and giving our duty to the city. And we just ask that you just bless everybody's hearts and minds and get us on track to take care of city business. I want to pray for first responders tonight, and thank you for everything. In Jesus' name, amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to open the session with public comments. The City Council welcomes citizen participation and comments at all council meetings. Citizens' comments are limited to 3 minutes out of respect for everyone's time. The council is not permitted to respond to your comments. The Texas Open Meetings Act requires that the topics of discussion, deliberation be posted on the agenda not less than 3 business days in advance of the council meeting. If your comments relate to a topic that is on the agenda, the council will discuss the topics on the agenda at the time that topic is discussed or deliberated. Anybody that wants public comments? All right, we'll go ahead and close those out. Moving on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are approved through a single council motion, which applies to all items listed. Consent agenda items are considered routine, not likely to require discussion or deliberation, and may be discussed prior to making a motion. There will be no separate discussion on the items unless a council member requests an item be removed and considered separately. Item number 1, consider approval of April 7th, 2026 meeting minutes. 2, consider pay request number 18 for Wicker Construction for work performed at the West Loop wastewater collection. Item number 3, consider pay request number 35 for Drake Construction for work performed at the Southside wastewater treatment plant. And item number 4, consider ordinance 2026-11, repealing ordinance 2026-6, outdoor burning ban for the city of Mount Pleasant. Do we have a motion?
A motion to approve the consent agenda items.
I second.
Madam Secretary, can we get a vote, please?
Yes. Aye.
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 All right, consent agenda passed unanimously. We'll move on to item number 5, a presentation on municipal solid waste management at the city of Mount Pleasant contractual obligation. And this is our attorney.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I was asked to provide a brief summary presentation for the council, and also so that the public is aware of certain aspects of its agreement with Republic. But as you know, and it has been discussed at other meetings, the city had an agreement with Republic originally, I believe in 1998. I'm not sure if there was one that preceded that, but there was certainly one in 1998. And then the city renewed that contract with Republic in 2020. The agreement provides for a sole and exclusive franchise and includes roll-off dumpsters and construction waste. Cities are permitted to enter into these type of agreements, these exclusive agreements for handling solid waste disposal services. This agreement with Republic does provide for a franchise fee that the city receives out of the rates that are paid under the agreement. So there's been some discussion about whether or not this is a legal agreement or whether that's permitted. The law in Texas has been interpreted, and it does permit this type of agreement. It's possible that the law changes. It does happen. The legislature could change the law, or it could be changed by a court interpretation. And if that's the case, at that time, the city would be in a position to consider some sort of amendment to the agreement with Republic. There's actually a provision under the contract that provides for changes in law. So one of the matters that was raised are rates that have been charged to residences and businesses. So since 2020, when this agreement was entered into, rates have gone up over time. The contract provides that rates will increase annually based on CPI. And that's the CPI for the Consumer Price Index for Dallas-Fort Worth areas. And so it could go up as much as 5% without any kind of action. Basically, Republic is required to provide you notice of that increase, and then it takes effect. If it were 5% or more, Republic would have to come and get your permission to increase. There's some other provisions that allow rate changes, but basically the rates from 2019 to 2022 for residential service, now there's lots of different rates under that agreement, but I'm just gonna focus on the residential, were $16.41. That now is $19.44. And so that increase is basically about $3 a month since 2019 timeframe, and that is an increase of 18.46% over those years. So that's over a period of time of approximately 6 or 7 years. If you went back a little bit further for about 10 years, they increased from, at that time they were $15.62 for residential service. So that was an increase of about 24.46% over a 10-year period. So the contract that Mount Pleasant has with Republic is a binding agreement, which means that if the city were to just ignore the terms, they could be sued for violating the terms of that agreement. Any number of things, right? It is a binding agreement. The agreement, though, expires in about 4.5 years in 2030. And so the agreement would automatically renew unless the parties provide notice of non-renewal. One of the parties provides notice of non-renewal at least 180 days prior to the expiration. And so that's something for you all to be aware of. So I'm just trying to make sure I've covered everything that was kind of put together. In terms of revenue, the city's franchise revenue was about a little bit of $1.2 million for the January 2025 through January 2026. The franchise revenue from 2018 to 2026 is $7.4 million. And so this isn't a secret. It's not like something that, the public is aware. The way that the rates are structured show that. So, all right. I think that's all I have, unless council has any questions.
So, Lee, what they voted on the last meeting, nothing has changed, right?
No, nothing has changed about the agreement. The what you considered at the last meeting was basically some enforcement tools, adding those to your ordinances that really apply to roll-off dumpsters.
Something that was already in place. So
yeah,
all y'all were doing was signing, and nothing had changed.
That's correct. These are sort of like supplementing enforcement tools under your contract, right, that you need.
Okay. And I just want to let everybody know, at the meeting where Republic did come out, I told all the citizens of the city that if there was an issue with the contract or the ordinance, to email me at my mayor address, and I gave the mayor address out, and I did not get one email from anybody, but anybody inside the city. So hopefully we can put this to bed. Thank you, Lee.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
I know I've been a pain over this.
What?
Yeah, but I think it's so important, and I appreciate you so much giving the facts, giving the information, and what people take from that is up to them. But it's so important that we're transparent. We tell what we did, we tell why we did it, and we let them know instead of somebody thinking, you know, I'm going to get a $20 a month increase. We put the facts out there, we put the truth out there, and that always helps.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to item number 6, monthly financial report for the month end of March 31st, 2026, with our interim finance director, Elliot.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Councilwomen. Thank you for allowing me to present your financials tonight. As you said, I'm Rebecca Elliott, a Strategic Government Resources Consultant, and your Interim Finance Director. We are at our March 2026 financials. This is our mid-year report too. So in theory, in an ideal world, everything would be 50% as a straight line percentage. For your general fund, you have a year-to-date actual of $10,555,476 compared to the budget of $15,874,400. So percentage year-to-date is higher than 50%. It's a positive of 66.5%. And in comparison to this time last year, it was 59.3%. So healthy revenues for the general fund. The property tax slide that you're used to seeing, you can see the big spike in January. That is where your current property taxes come through, and you have received all of your current property taxes year to date at this point. Your year-to-date property tax revenue percentage is 92.5 versus last year this time at 90.4%. You'll recall too, Shirley came and presented the $20,000 check. You'll see that in your April financials next. Your sales tax for March is at 52.5% versus 46.1%, so another good trend. We move on to general fund expenditures. You have actual year-to-date of $8,169,463 in comparison to a budget of $15,888,447. That is a 48.6 and under 50% for your expenditures. We look at our utility funds. We have a year-to-date revenue of $10,209,230 in comparison to a budget of $20,432. So you're right on target at 50% for your utility fund revenue. Looking at utility fund expenditures, you have year-to-date actuals of $9,261,261,261,248. So numbers are obviously even hard for me sometimes. That's in comparison to a budget of $19,547,991. For below 50% target, we're at 47.4% and under the mid-year. So overall, those two funds look healthy. We already know what our April sales tax collections will be, and we had an actual year-to-date of $494,901. You'll note, though, in this chart, it's $430,087. The reason for that is we did a year-to-date true-up of your refuse sales tax that we pay to the state. And so we did a reconciliation. You have not just myself as new staff, but also another new staff, a member of CPA, who he hired. And so we just did an adjustment It's not uncommon to look at that at year end, but since we're new, we're trying to true up everything at this point. It's less than 1.5%, not material, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. And are there any questions? So, we can move on
Yeah, we
to
can
the
go ahead and
next
move on to item number
item.
7.
Yes,
Yeah, quarterly
sir.
investment
Thank you.
report for the quarter end March 31st.
I do not have a PowerPoint for you. You have a report of the investments in your packet. This is a requirement of state statute, the Public Funds Investment Act. You are currently in compliance, even though Jillian is no longer here. I am certified with the act myself. So between Candace and myself, we're in compliance. We've certified the report. We do not currently use outsourcing or external professional service for our investments. It's done in-house. That's okay. It may be something that down the road we want to maybe look at. But you are currently invested in 3 products that are good quality products in my opinion. You have TechTool, Logic, and Texas Range for your investments. All very safe, all in compliance with your Public Funds Investment Act. Today's rate, TechTool is at a 3.66 interest rate on a 44-day weighted average. Logic was at a 3.78 with a 54-day weighted average, and Texas Range was at 3.66. They didn't have a weighted average, but theirs is on a 60-day maturity. So if you'll recall, last December, the Federal Reserve lowered a quarter basis points to try to look at inflation, and they'll do that periodically to try to target interest rate. They had a target of 3.5 to 3.75%. All of your interest rates are in that range and healthier than the minimum 3.5, with Logic, a Hilltop product, also exceeding at 3.78. So I feel like your rates are still good for the current situation of the economy. Are there any questions? Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 8. Discuss and consider authorizing the City of Mount Pleasant to solicit requests for proposals for grant administrative services and request for qualifications for engineering services for the Water Supply Infrastructure Grant Program administered by Texas Water Development Board. And this is our Utilities Director, Marshall.
Mayor, before we go to that item, can you have a vote to accept the quarterly report, please?
Yes. No, that's fine. All right. Have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the quarterly investment report for quarter ended March the 31st, 2026.
I second.
Madam Secretary, we get a vote, please?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Hey, Mark.
Good evening. I'm just going to introduce John with GrantWorks, and he should be able to give you a little bit more information.
Thanks, Mayor, Council. Texas Water Development Board Water Supply Infrastructure Grant Program has been introduced. It's the grant program for cities to take advantage of some very healthy grant dollars to work on water infrastructure. A couple of weeks ago, I met with City Manager Vine and Aaron to discuss if the city had any needs for water, and they do. Got a big water line project that qualifies. The city qualifies, and the city is competitive for this. The good news is it's free. There's no match component to this, which is very important because large grant dollars that have large match components with them are sometimes impossible to do. There's no match component to this. As a matter of fact, there's no expense at all other than what Candace would spend to run a couple of newspaper ads. Told City Manager Vine I would bring him grant opportunities like this when they come along. He wants to take advantage of it. It's a very good opportunity. Applications are due at the end of July. My company will assist Candace with the procurement process to hire an administrator, whether it's us or somebody else. Help her get that done. She knows how to do it, but we'll give her some assistance. And then you'll pick an administrator, and we'll apply for it. Tonight, we'd ask that you authorize the issuance of the RFPs and RFPs. You gotta hire an administrator and an engineer.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
How much is the grant amount for? Is it 1.5?
Up to $5 million.
And once you make application in July, what's an average that you might hear back?
This is the first time for this program, so it's kind of hard for me to answer that, but most Water Development Board projects, the announcement made within a year. This is a recurring grant that's gonna happen over the next 20 years. The grant amount is a little over $1 billion per year, so there's gonna be some funding available. There are 3 different categories. Large city, they're gonna take a lot of it. Medium cities, which is where you're at, and then there's small cities that are under 1,000. That's the smallest portion. There's gonna be a healthy amount of money in it.
Great. Any more questions? Good. All right, can we get a vote? Thank you.
I make a motion to authorize the city of Mount Pleasant to solicit requests for proposals for grant administrative services and requests for qualifications for engineering services for the water supply and infrastructure grant program administered by the Texas Water Development Board.
I second the motion.
All right, Madam Secretary, can we get a vote, please?
Yes.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passed unanimously. We'll move on to item number 9. Discuss and consider ordinance 2026-12, adopting property tax exemption for qualifying child care facilities. And this is our city attorney. Oh. Just, that's all right, Paul. I'm with you, ma'am.
No worries. All right, I'm actually doing a little cover here for your city manager, since he was unable to be here tonight. So this is the matter that was discussed, I believe, at the last meeting, in which the city may adopt an ordinance for a property tax exemption for qualifying child care facility. The ordinance has actually been drafted, and it's not in your packet, but it basically, it meets the requirements for one of these type exemptions. And so, last week, or last meeting, you heard that if you're going to do it, you have to do it now. But the amount has not been specified. If you're going, so it's really up to council whether or not you grant it or not. But it is allowed under the Texas constitutional provisions that were changed, and also under Chapter 51 of the Texas Local Government Code. And so the question really for you is whether you want to pass it. It would only be for qualifying child care facility. And so those facilities are under the Texas Rising Star program. And so the question is whether you would like to grant that, and if so, it has to be at least 50% of an exemption, but it could be up to 100%.
Do we set that, the 50%?
Yes, you do. So you would be exempting the portion that goes to the city for these properties. And it can either be a property that is owned by the child care facility or one that is leased with certain restrictions.
Like, how many kids are there and that kind of thing? Or?
I to be honest, I'm not certain what you have to do to meet the qualifications under the program, but they would have to meet those qualifications to be eligible for this program.
Explain to me about the percentage. How are those rates set? I mean, I'm not quite there yet.
So, so you would be granting as the, pull up the, do you think you could put it on that screen? I think that would probably, that's, So it would be 50 to 100% of the appraised value of the property. Well, as
Have to be for next year, right?
yeah, so you would have to pass that at this meeting so that it would be applicable for next year, is my understanding.
Any discussion? Good? You okay to have a motion on this? Okay.
I have a question. So I'm looking at the bottom of, not numbered, it's the memorandum.
Mm-hmm.
At the very bottom, it said budget. You see it? So it says 100% property tax exemption for the 3 child care facilities would result in a decrease in the general fund by $3,826. If we did 75%, that would be $2,869.88, and 50% exemption would result in a decrease in the general fund of $1,913.25.
That is correct.
So my quick thinking on this is, I personally think the 100% could be good, and the reason why I do that is because I'm thinking of how many women and men are working full time, and they have to rely on these daycares to keep their kids. By the more people working in Mount Pleasant, that's going to increase the sales tax. It's going to increase people buying things and revenue coming in. So if all we're losing based on this projection, we probably, by them being able to keep mamas and daddies working, that could be a benefit.
So tonight we can vote on it and not recommend the percentage, right?
No, you would need to adopt the percentage.
Okay. It's on here. But
So, yeah, so it would, minimum 50 up to,
well, I mean, yeah, it does say it doesn't need. I think that it's probably something good because we're probably gonna have a couple of more childcare schools or whatever it is coming in next year. So that'll be an incentive, I think. Yes, sorry, Lee, we're just confused because on that last page it said that we could recommend it, and that's what staff recommends, but we didn't recommend a percentage on that exemption.
yeah, and, yeah, I believe, it's a policy level decision for you to make, and so I think often the staff might make a recommendation on this, but Fix didn't make a recommendation on this one.
And left the percentage alone, yeah, but they recommended it.
Yes.
I mean, I'm with Kelly, I don't have a vote, but.
Yeah, I recommend 100% as well.
So it's as long as the ordinance is in existence, and so if you did it for a time period and you decided that you wanted to cease doing it, you would then,
Remove
you would
the ordinance.
revoke the ordinance allowing
So it's like a normal,
exemption.
yeah, normal exemption.
So I think so you have the,
Are you good? Well, no, so the wording was a little bit confusing, that the staff, they recommend it, but they're not allowed to recommend the percentage.
they're just not providing you a recommended
Right.
percentage, but you would need to adopt a percentage that your grant.
I mean, at 100% right now, it's talking about less than $4,000. So, and it's gonna be an incentive for people. 75? No, we have two. So how do we do that? We have two at 75 and two
Well,
at 100.
you basically, somebody makes a motion and you see if it passes, then if it doesn't, then you could make another motion.
So let me ask another question. So at some point,
what
can
that
this change?
Yes, it could. You could, I mean, if you did it for 100% for year one and then you decided to go to 75%, you could certainly adjust. You just need to be cognizant of the timing of the year.
I make a motion that we accept this property tax exemption. Or is it called certain child care facilities? No, what's the name of it?
It's, an ordinance 2026-12, adopting the property tax exemption for qualifying childcare.
So, Kelly, can we make a motion first for the 100% and then 75?
Well, I was
Just to-
just gonna,
She was 100 and Kelly was 100 a second ago. That's why I was just saying, just for record, is all. So, it's up to you.
well,
That's good.
so I would like to make a motion that we consider the ordinance 2026-12 adopting the property tax exemption for qualifying child care facilities, and at 100%.
At 100%.
All right, can I get a second?
I second.
Madam Secretary, can we get a vote, please?
No,
Aye.
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 All right, motion passed 3-1.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Yeah, and just to let you all know, our city manager is out on scheduled leave, so. All right, let's move to item number 10. Discuss and consider resolution 2026-12, authorizing the city manager to execute documents relating to improvements at the Mount Pleasant Regional Airport, and this is our airport director, Hendricks.
Mayor, council, sorry I was a little too quick a while ago. My
That's right.
resolution had the same number as the ordinance, and I heard that, and so, but anyway, sorry about that. Anyway, this resolution is for the dirt work project. We're continuing at the airport. This is gonna be phase 2 of it. And, you say, what will it accomplish? This will give us 10 more building sites for the larger hangars, the corporate size hangars. They can be private hangars too, but we are making the places to build them, and the taxiway is going to include about an 800-foot taxiway extension. And you know, as Mount Pleasant grows, the airport needs to be able to grow too. And the good thing about this, infrastructure grant money and non-primary entitlement money we have is hopefully is going to finish all of this up for us. And but we need to have where the city manager can sign all the documentation and stuff for it.
Great, we appreciate it. We appreciate you thinking ahead too, because I know I'm with you. You know, next year we're probably gonna have some big planes flying.
Yeah, we've had some big planes. I've got to tell you all about one we had last week. It was a Gulfstream 450, not the biggest plane that's ever been into the airport, but the one that bought the most fuel. We put almost 2,700 gallons on that airplane. Wow. And it was something over $17,000 fuel bill. We've never done anything like that before. Who would have thought that those kind of planes would be coming into Mount Pleasant?
Right.
Mount Pleasant's growing. I mean, hey, and we need to stay up with it.
But that's the second time they stopped here too, wasn't it?
Well, that particular plane was, but we've had a lot of them in here like
Right.
that.
That's awesome. That's great.
Paul, I have a question.
Yeah.
Talking about all this air traffic controller and stuff.
Yeah.
So here we are in Mount Pleasant. You've got more people flying in, flying out. Have you had any close calls? Who does all that? Who's the one that says?
Who does all that?
Uh-huh.
We're an uncontrolled airport. And what does that mean? It means that we can give them advisories. We can tell them what the wind direction is, and there's somebody holding short on runway 17 and that sort of thing. But we can't tell them where to go or what, you know, that sort of thing, like a controller. And you say, well, don't we need a controller? We don't have that many planes in there. And they talk to one another. They'll be 15 miles out. They'll call in and give their position and say they're inbound landing runway 17 Mount Pleasant. Anybody else is around, they want to talk to them, and they will, you know, and which they just talk to one another, and the system works really good. It does.
And the FAA monitors that and regulate, I mean, they make sure.
Well, you know, if they were higher up, like 2,000 foot or up, you know, they're on radar there, and Fort Worth Center can control them and direct them, you know, and stuff. But once they get lower than that, they can't reach them with the radio, but they can talk to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, can we get a motion?
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2026-12, authorizing the city manager to execute documents relating to the improvements at the Mount Pleasant Regional Airport.
I second the motion.
Madam Secretary, can we get a vote, please?
Aye.
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 Yes.
All right, passed unanimously. Yep, thank you. Go ahead and move on to item number 11. Want the music to start? That's right. Discuss and consider the performance agreement between Mount Pleasant Economic Development Corporation and East Texas Lift Truck, Inc., DBA LTS Material Handling.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thanks for letting me be here today, or tonight. And I appreciate Paul trying to hurry, because I knew I was after him, so. I do want to give Paul a shout out. We've had some folks that have come into town to look at Mount Pleasant, and we've sent them out to the airport to look, and he's been gracious enough to host them. And so we're very lucky to have the airport that we have and the ability what it does. So tonight we're here to discuss, consider, and hopefully possibly take action on an incentive agreement between the Mount Pleasant EDC and Lift Truck Systems Material Handling. They are presently located in our business park in this building, and they are considering an expansion. The EDC board voted on this last week to give them $70,000 provided they employ at least 4 new positions. They're going to use that money to build a fence around the back side of the property. With this expansion, they'll become a full-fledged dealership, which means they will sell forklifts, lease forklifts, repair, maintenance, the whole operation out of this location. They've been in the business park for 2 years ago. So their headquarters are in Tyler, family owned and operated. They've been in business since 1982. They have plan on building an awning out the back side for the delivery service, and with that Toyota forklift, which is what they provide, requires them to have that fenced in, to have that delivery area fenced in and covered. So they're going to pay for the covering. What this performance agreement would do would be allow them to build the fence. We would pay them the $70,000. They're going to pick the contractor, provided that's a local contractor, part of the agreement as well. With that, they're also granting us about 1/3 of an acre to build a road that you guys have already, you as a body have already approved. They've actually already staked that road off, and they should start construction on that road in the next week or so, provided it dries up. So I certainly would answer any questions as it relates to this project. Let me kind of tell you on the map where the road is. These jobs are going to be a minimum of $25 an hour. Their estimate is those are going to be somewhere around $28 an hour, and they're looking at providing up to 8 or 9. We're going to require the 4 full-time. They have to have those employed for a minimum of 3 years. If they do not have those for the 3-year period, then they would have to pay back a portion or all of the money that we're going to give them as an assistance. So they're supposed to start that expansion in the next 10 days, and we expect it to be done in the next 6 months. but in the agreement, they have to have it done by March 31st of 2027.
Kevin, currently, they're not selling forklifts there, correct?
Yeah, they're just servicing.
So,
But there's a ton load of forklifts in this county. And
Well-
so this will be their second dealership. They do have locations in Temple, Texarkana, but those are not full-fledged dealerships. So they've picked Mount Pleasant as their second location for that, just because of the volume that they have in Titus County.
it's just gonna help us on our sales tax, so
That is correct.
this is an easy decision, I think.
I do have a question. So of
Yes,
the
ma'am.
people that they're gonna hire, do you know what requirements they are looking for? Will it be salesmen? Will it be more mechanics? Will it
It's
be?
gonna be service technicians is the main. They are gonna have a couple of sales folks here. I think it's like 2 sales, 4 service techs, and I don't remember what the other 2 folks are gonna be, but mainly in the backside, but I think they are gonna put 2 salespeople here.
Yeah, and I know people have been asking, how do you make sure that that's enforced? And y'all are gathering reports from each of these people that you're working with every year, right?
That's correct. So we do compliance reporting. They have to have all of our performance agreements require that they submit TWC reports for the last quarter of the year by February 1st, and then we check that compliance. And we've completed all our compliance checks for this year, and everybody was in compliance,
Great.
or actually above compliance. But yes, we will check this for the next 3 years. We will check their compliance to make sure that they have that.
And being
So we
accountable.
want to make sure that we are judicious with the taxpayers' money.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim. Need a motion?
I make a motion to approve performance agreement between Mount Pleasant Economic Development Corporation and East Texas Lift Truck, Inc., DBA LTS Material Handling.
A second.
Madam Secretary, can we get a vote, please?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Yes.
All right. Pass unanimously. Thanks,
Thank you,
Gov.
Mayor.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Council.
Item number 12, presentation and discussion of certain proposed changes to code development requirements in Chapter 95, 98, and 155. This is our Development Director, Barry. Lynn.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So, you're kinda off the hook for me tonight because this is a presentation and a discussion, no action needed. So you can kinda take it a little slow. If I could illustrate with a kind of iconic illustration, it would be the tip of the iceberg because we have a lot of code that is old and outdated. Some of it needs, it's solid, but it needs refurbishing. And so rather than pay a lot of money to a consultant or bring in things that are not appropriate for our locality, we're proposing to do it bit by bit. So this is the very first presentation on what we're wanting to do that is practical. We picked some of the things that we actually touch as a department day to day that would help us, particularly in code enforcement, but overall actually in various development areas that are what I would call low-hanging fruit. So let's dive in. There are only 6 of them. So just as an introduction, we need code changes to keep pace with our property maintenance and our health and safety and any kind of use changes in our code. So we're only doing 6 of them tonight that I'm going to talk about, and I do want input either tonight or in the next couple of weeks as to whether you like them or you don't want them, so that we can move forward with all the legalese that enlist Lee's help, because there are 3 different ordinances and various sections in the ordinances that these touch, but it's a lot of work to change them. So I wanted to kind of gauge your input. So kind of a refresher, why do we have city codes? Of course, Debbie already knows all this, but they basically exist to protect our citizens' health and safety, and that's why they're here. they foster orderly development in our city, for example, and they also enhance economic vitality for everyone. But what they don't do is, just to kind of also put it in perspective, they're not beautification tools necessarily. That's not their purpose. They work for that, but that's not what their primary purpose. They have to have a public purpose. They can't be specific to help one group over another. They're not a substitute for any kind of subdivision standards or HOAs that would be privately administered to make things look great. Country club. That's a whole, that doesn't have anything to do with the city. And of course, they do apply to everybody, so you can't do code changes for one group and not for another, you know, so they have to be equally administered. So tonight, these are the 6, and I'll talk a little bit about them, and then each one has its own slide or set of slides. So fencing material specifications, currently we do not have them. Residential building screen materials, what that means is certain residential properties attempt to screen areas that may be less, that are code issues, and they use materials that are themselves code issues, but we have no current language to address them. Non-residential parking paving requirements, those we actually, it's twofold. One, we want to make it easier for businesses, but also add a health and safety piece. The 4th one is to propose that we have a street standard that's only concrete for new city streets because of money saved long term. The 5th one is the mini storage parking requirements. You may remember was brought up as a common sense item several months ago. The 6th one is related to an additional discussion on revitalization that we will have specifically, but that is to allow upper and lower duplex units, which building code allows. Other cities use them because they allow you to revitalize property and go up instead of out for duplexes. But for whatever reason, I could not find why our code prohibits them. So we want to revise our codes because the standards are sometimes outdated, and they change. Regulations and laws change over time, and we also have a whole slate of those that also are going to need some housekeeping. Changing conditions because we have advancement in technologies, and we don't have some uses that are called out, like mini store doesn't have a use in our code right now. Changing citizen expectations, so they put pressure on y'all. And then the last one is just your decision maker desire for improvement. All those come into play. So each one of these will have an illustration that shows kind of why we want them. So we propose to change the code to allow only fence types that would be designed for being fencing. Now it sounds common sense, but we don't have that. So we would prohibit things like what you're seeing, material that's discarded, pallets, old tin, you know, just tarps in various states. This one's actually not in bad shape. You should see what happens after a year or two. So the benefit to that would be code of compliance and neighborhood vitality. And to kind of go more into it, the code itself would specifically allow these materials so that you wouldn't be trying to guess what is an allowed material. Well, here they are. There really are no, and nothing's left out. So if it's been designed for a fence, it's on this list. And so, but it does, and so the citizen could look at it and say, oh, okay, I can have this for a fence or that for a fence, but a pallet fence, no. So there are a few prohibitions we're going to put into the code. For example, specifically calling out anything that's not made for fencing, which would be like old railroad ties or full pieces of lattice work that are designed for plants but not necessarily fencing. Corrugated steel from old buildings or old tin, whether it's rusty or not, but they're not specifically made for fencing, and they also don't hold up. We would allow electric fencing, but only in future development, for animals, where people wouldn't interact with the fence, and it would not, I know they have to get a permit for all of these, of course. So when they came in for a permit, we would judge if it was next door to your house, Kelly, we would say no. We would allow barbed wire in those zoning districts for, again, animals or for security. But not because you didn't like your neighbors. Same thing with razor wire. There's a place and time and a place for that. That will be specifically woven into the language that we would allow it, and it would have to be at least 6 feet tall so people could be injured. The next one is residential screening, which we don't have anything in our code currently that does not allow it. However, there are certain areas of town where you'll see a lot of these. This is one from one of our areas that is hiding material that has previously been called out as code enforcement issue for any kind of junk, trash, discarded furniture, any kind of items that don't belong outdoors, and in carports that are open. So they're visible, but they also are accessible to vermin, animals, and that sort of thing. So there is, again, and there's the code compliant benefit. Each one of these has its own benefit. So these types of screens would be allowed as a permitted construction material for the area, and only with the permit. So if you wanted to screen your carport, you would get a building permit, put up permitted construction materials, which would be wood or tin or some building type material, and not tarps that rip and tear, and as you can see, you can still see a lot of that stuff behind there. It's not allowed. So we don't, it's a way to keep people from hiding things that should be outside in the first place. The second piece is also that those items are not secured or safe. They're just kind of popped up there, and they're unsightly and for construction, and could be a safety hazard as well. Again, neighborhood vitality, because it helps the whole neighborhood. The third one is a non-residential parking lot piece, and this would not mean that people's parking lots in the city would ever change. This only would happen if they were expanded from remodels or new uses, or somebody came in and wanted a permit. So asphalt would be allowed with permission. Currently, several years ago it changed, and concrete is the only allowed material for parking lots in our city. That causes some financial hardship, particularly for somebody who wants to refurbish and redo. And so my interpretation has been letting people redo with what they had, which if it's asphalt and it's a light use. This would only happen with permission from myself and the building official, because with heavy use, industrial use, trucks that turn, it tears asphalt up and turns it basically into gravel in our Texas heat. So there's some uses that wouldn't be appropriate. So they would have to get a permit, obviously, to put paving down, and if they wanted asphalt, we would tell them yes or no. But, somebody's business, normal cars and pickup trucks, it would be with standards for the application of it. We wouldn't just let people put it down. There are standards for how asphalt should be in a parking lot, and that would be part of the rules that we make.
Lynn, before you leave that, I have two. One is that you have on here for remodeling. Now, if I own a commercial building and I'm just remodeling the inside, in my opinion, that should not activate the need for new.
It doesn't, as long as the use isn't changed and you're not adding. Sometimes people will add stuff when they remodel, and that's what I'm talking about. But if you're going in and building a bathroom or something
Okay.
like that, and you've got an existing parking lot, no.
Okay. Are you looking at adding a percentage requirement? Like when certain buildings have a fire and there's a fire code, if it's
Well-
over 25%, they have to meet certain
So,
requirements.
right now, they have to meet it anyway. We're actually allowing them to ask for asphalt instead of concrete, but yes, I see what you're saying. We could add 25% or to quantify the expansion and remodel piece if you'd like. This is actually more intended to loosen the requirements than,
Yeah.
particularly if somebody comes along behind me and takes our codes. What it says right now is you have to put concrete down.
Yeah.
And I've been pretty lenient about allowing that, especially because of the impact on business. Now, sometimes concrete's cheaper when fuel prices go up, but to give them a choice where it makes sense. The other piece is the concrete approach. When said improvements are made or to put asphalt down, we an approach that is 20 feet between the pavement and onto their property that bridges that right of way would be required to be concrete so that you didn't wash. You see the picture on the right hand side. What happens? It ends up in the roadway, and it can be a hazard. It causes issues with rocks flying up, and it can also cause people to lose control on curves. So having a concrete approach is a requirement. Our code is not there. Again, if somebody wants to put pavement down, or if they're required to do so, but typically we're not really doing a lot of requiring to do so much as I'm trying to expand it so they don't have to put concrete.
In my opinion, the only thing I would say is if a guy's gonna add an awning onto his business or a patio, I would hate to see him have to go and resurface or have that kick in. So that would be the only thing I would ask you to look at, is that we look at some small percentage. It has to exceed a 20% increase or whatever before that kicks in.
And 25% is used as a kind of a bellwether, and I'm fine with that. But if somebody wants to redo their parking lot, we want to allow them to have asphalt. And right now, we can't. You know, if we do. Okay, yes, we'll put a 25%. Thank you for that. Anybody else? At the end, I'm gonna have my email on so that if you think of something in the middle of the night, you can send me. I didn't think that you'd come up with your answers right now, but again, it's customer savings and street safety is why we're doing this. So the fourth one was the city manager's suggestion based on some of the input that he'd had and his experience in other cities. Many cities require that city streets be concrete only. In Mount Pleasant, I don't know when it was redone or if it was redone. When I say city streets, we're not talking about TxDOT, we're talking about ours. That new streets for a developer who's putting in a subdivision or for whatever reason we want to do a street, although we pretty much are not bound by the same rules as everybody else, but that we would require concrete instead of asphalt because we have particularly certain areas of town, we have all kinds of shifting soil. It causes them to break, and it causes a lot of maintenance issues down the road, costs a lot of money. And so concrete does not have that. Garrett was very supportive of this, and this is something Rob had thought would be a benefit, and it's your call, but that we put it in because, again, we're talking budgetary savings down the road, long after y'all leave, when the new street with asphalt street would fail, the concrete one would keep right on going. So, the fifth one's mini storage parking, previously discussed. Of course, it's not a use that was ever mentioned. Self-storage, mini storage, all we had was warehouses. It didn't make sense. Because there's no people, the model for mini storage now, there's no people on site, there's nobody there. And the people who go to the mini storage do not drive up to be a customer, they go straight to their mini storage, which we do require they be paid for that reason. So the comparable standard would be one space for every 50 units, and then one for every on-site employee, which, to my knowledge, 0, but potentially could happen. Again, there's such a thing as overparking, in the planning world. Our code isn't bad about it. Luckily, some codes are, but, you know, it's one of those things, you don't want to be overparked either. And the 6th one is one that came to me recently. I wasn't aware that our local code does not allow duplexes one on top of the other. Now, building code does. So in order to get a building permit, you have to abide by the International Residential Code, which addresses any of the safety code issues that would, fire hazards, stairs, all those. That's all addressed. Why I don't know, but it's a revitalization tool that is used in a lot of cities where you want to add additional residential enhancements, but you don't have very big lots. So it actually, they go up instead of out, and they actually blend into the residential character better than just strict having duplex after duplex. So that would be an enhanced revitalization choice, but that would only kick in where duplexes as a use are allowed now, which is in a 2-family or multifamily zoning district. I'm not proposing they go everywhere, but that if someone wants to build one or remodel one, which is the case in the one you're looking at right now, they are able to. And currently, our code says no. So, I guess additional development option for the housing. So this is just for this discussion, and I want your feedback. If she's already given me some, if you want to do that later. And these 3 chapters will have, you will be getting the legalese and section of this and section of that, and there are some, we had some fencing, we found some fencing sections in the street that didn't even belong in the street section of code, so we're gonna kind of amass all that. But please email, text, or call me with any questions or ideas. So we're not finished. It's the tip of the iceberg. So additional ordinance changes that'll be presented in upcoming meetings. I want to do this regularly, small pieces at a time. Sometimes one at a time if it's big enough. And these are our future discussions that we have coming up in no particular order. The new downtown district, I'm going to try and bring at least a discussion of what the actual district needs to look like, not the full presentation, because you need to kind of have some idea of whether we want to expand it or not. That's the first one. Noise regulations. We don't have noise regulations. I mean, you can't disturb the peace. What does that mean? What happens if a data center wants to come in? Did you know how loud they are? They're really loud, and they are and so we don't have any real, okay, how many decibels at the property line in this zoning district or that zoning district is allowed, and how do you measure them? We don't have that in our code. We probably need those. The accessory vehicle, question about front yard parking for accessory vehicles, and also for service vehicles for those people that do engine repair, small engine repair. How many vehicles can they store on a lot in the front and not behind, and to put things that are stored in the front and not behind? What those regulations look like. That's going to come probably all by itself. Industrial screening improvements. So if we have corridors, part of the folks that want to talk about downtown, they want to propose, not with the downtown code, but they want a beautification corridor coming into downtown. Well, we could probably use some industrial screening improvements for changes of use and new on strategic corridors coming into our city. And it would also give Kevin and company a tool to say, okay, existing business, you aren't required to do anything, but we can throw X number of money in grant if you come up to the city code. But right now, we don't really have anything. It's not common sense at all for particularly landscape buffers, things like that. And then our inoperable vehicle code, i.e. junk cars, there are law changes for that, we would like to bring, anytime, and there are various other things. So our, for example, food trucks are not gonna be licensed by the city anymore. The state's taking it over, and that's still in our, in our requirements. So we'll bring some of those little housekeeping things forward. That's me. Reach out if you have any ideas.
Quick, and you can just take a note. So if I had a business and my business had asphalt, and I needed to then resurface with concrete, that would probably scare me away because of the price of going to concrete.
Well, technically, if you weren't doing anything to the business and all you wanted to do was resurface, I would let you resurface. But it's nice to have that codified, because right now it says an approved surface for the city, and the only approved surface material we have is concrete only. Well, there are no asphalt requirements in our code that say you need, X number of inches of asphalt to, do a proper parking lot. We don't even have those. I don't know whether they were ever there or they were taken out or whatever. So in order to allow it, I wouldn't ever make you do it.
Well,
But
I kind of thought that it might be your department, or it might be working with someone else, that if we could get maybe some low interest financing, or work with the concrete people, to kind of say, hey, if you're going to redo your streets, or if you're going to if we're going to try to make this over a 10-year period of where they're redoing streets, and maybe there's like a program that the city could work with some people to see if we could get some low interest financing maybe for them, if it is a small business, or I don't know, it's just a thought.
Are you proposing this instead of allowing asphalt parking lots, or are you talking about the streets? So the streets are city requirements when new streets go in. Right now, it's counterintuitive. Right now, you can build an asphalt street, but you can't put asphalt down for a parking lot.
I'm just saying both. I mean, when I say both, the way you presented it was like we were going to go forward with concrete streets, and that was something that Garrett and
for longevity.
But then I just remember a situation about a year or two ago where there was someone that bought an older building, and they were trying to get in. They changed the purpose of the building, and it went from, let's say, an antique place to a sports facility. But they were told they had to re-asphalt. And so, or concrete. Concrete. So I know that was kind of like a hair pull for a while, but if that, I don't think they had to go through with that. But if they, or did they?
But they wouldn't have been able to do it. It's a non-profit. Yeah, they wouldn't have been able to
So
do it.
that's where I guess that's in the back of my mind, that one group, if they were going to have to concrete, we need to be able to make sure it can be affordable and maybe some low interest finance.
I don't know that we would, I'm not an attorney, but I'm not sure how we would ever set up a mechanism, because the city isn't really in the affordable business. But to your point and to her point, so in order to kick into the new paving, so if it's the one I'm thinking of, so it's broken up paving. And I actually found that they had material that was formerly asphalt, and said that they could do asphalt and they wouldn't have to do concrete. But they didn't actually expand their building 25%. So if we put the 25% in, that does help people even for the price of new concrete. However, when they do put in the asphalt, they also need to have that approach concrete because it helps. That safety aspect of what happens when that stuff from broken up concrete, or if they wanted to. So one of the other things that comes up, somebody wants to expand and add some parking, they can, as long as they add that parking, and if it matches the asphalt. They don't have to do the whole parking lot, but the concrete approach will keep from bringing all that stuff into the roadway, which is the safety hazard.
And at least with these discussions and getting the public information out there, people can be aware of this, because I know he got caught totally unaware like some other people did recently. So I think we're doing the right thing, and we're doing it for the right reason, and we'll make sure everybody's educated as we go.
Okay.
And the one thing that I would say that I'm pretty sure Rob would agree is that as much discretionary choices you have to make, the least amount would probably be the better. So in other words, if someone comes to you with like the parking thing for which you did, and I appreciate it, but the parking thing for the mini storage and stuff like that, that we actually turn this into an ordinance, so then it's not a decision you have to make and you have to get backlash on why you chose that or why you did that. So anytime you get someone to come in, then we can just update the ordinance.
It also helps people who are looking at Mount Pleasant develop.
Yeah.
So over time, of course, I think everybody's aware that the city did spend $60,000, I think, or 55 of the 60 on a zoning ordinance redo. Kind of got stopped because it's going to cost so much to just send out the notice on that. So we're kind of backpedaling on trying to do common sense pieces that aren't going to trigger that. But one of the things that I'm trying to do is organize the materials so that when somebody a resident wants to build something or improve something, or somebody from outside is used to looking at common sense ordinances that actually answer questions for where you might want to find things, they can find it, and it's in code, and they know, okay, it's in code. This is it. I don't have to do but 2 parking spaces for my one person and my one parking for my 50 unit mini storage, and they already know that they're not going to have lots of requirements, or you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we're trying to let everybody know by putting it in the code in the first place where to
Perfect.
find it.
All right. I appreciate it, Lynn.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 13, presentation discussion concerning the rehabilitation of Tankersley Lake Dam. And this is our utilities director, Aaron Marshall.
Hello again. So y'all should have a packet that was put with that. It's a pretty thick packet. I'm not going through the whole thing. The top half is
Looking forward to it.
Oh no, the top half is just the PowerPoint. The back half is actually the inspection report from TCEQ. So y'all all have a copy that y'all can look at later. I did put some bullet points in my PowerPoint that kind of skims the main topics of the inspection. Most of it is just a history background check of it. It goes over why it was rated, what it was rated. It goes over the issues that they found and has pictures to go with it. So it's pretty lengthy on just that alone. So I didn't feel like going through every single part of it. But I will go over just the main bullet points with it.
Shortening them would be great, though.
I'll try to beat 30 minutes.
Oh, thanks.
Lynn set the bar really high for me. So, history of the dam, it was completed in 1957. It's had numerous inspections over the years. They average about every 5 years, no matter how TCQ puts it. If they show up 3 years after, they just show up, and then they put us back on the 5-year schedule. So they just show up when they show up. In 83, there was a partial failure to the dam, and in 84, repairs were done. This is actually a picture from the report y'all have. Since 85, the dam itself has been rated in fair condition, but during the same time, the spillway has been rated in poor condition. The location of the dam makes it a high hazard rating. It's within, I don't know how far that is from I-30, but it's mainly because if there was 100% failure of the dam, the flood area is so large that it makes it a high hazard. There's roughly 4,100 square feet of water that's inside Tankersley. That's roughly, math-wise, about 1.3 to 1.4 billion gallons of water that would be released. So it would spread, and I believe I put pictures of the flood area. Yes, I did. So on y'all's printouts, you should be able to see a better look at the actual road sign, so you can see where we're at. I-30, I can't read that at all, but it's going all towards our sewer plant is the route the water would go. It would sooner or later make it all the way to the south side to where our sewer plant is, not the Pilgrim sewer plant. I think it actually would flood the Pilgrim sewer plant. I believe that's it right there in the top of this picture. Right about there is the Pilgrim sewer plant. So it would be completely underwater. And then it would just keep on going. And I believe that's before, this last picture is right before you get to our sewer plant. Next are just pictures of, these are current pictures of our actual dam. So the dam's been rated fair. Most of our panels look like they are like this right here. You have a few cracks that would have to be replaced. And I think you have one or two that have settled that we would have to replace. And then you have a section of settlement that is built up itself in front of the dam that would have to be removed.
You're saying would have?
We would have to have it actually dug off of it and not be there anymore.
So it's TCEQ thing.
It's just violation. I mean, there's pretty much a TCQ violation on this is a dog with no teeth.
Okay.
So they're gonna bark, but there's no violation paperwork really. It just says recommended, this is what needs to be done. If you don't do it, all liability is on you now.
Okay, I got it.
So it's not that they're, punishing us or fining us or anything. It's just they're making sure that we know that they're not gonna take any responsibility for any part of this failure. This is the actual spillway. You will see that there's been sections that have broken off or separated. The trees are starting to grow in. When it comes to a tree on the dam, if it's over 4 inches thick, we cannot touch it. It has to wait till it dies. Trees don't die when they're 4 inches, they just keep growing. So that's the issue. This would have to, if they were big, they have to be removed and the void has to be cemented back in. Same concept, another broken panel right beside the edge of a tree where you can see it's pushing itself the gap open wider. This is the construction. It would have to happen during a summer, not this summer. I don't think we can get it all pushed together because we still have to go through discussions and drawings, but it'd have to go during a summer so you have less rain to deal with. Project time, if we don't have hardly any rain to deal with, it's on the 3-month range. If it's a wet summer, you're looking more at the 6 month. Estimated cost between $900,000 and $1.3 million. Just depends also on the rain season. Now the downfall, which will upset people, the water level would have to be lowered to at least bottom of the panels that have to be pulled out, so you don't have water going underneath. And during construction, it would have to be a no-wake lake. We couldn't have the waves going into it. And this is the part that would be under construction, that red area right there. All that would be pulled apart and replaced with new. And these are pictures from the I believe 84 construction of what it looked like when they lowered the water. It might not get that extreme because you can see the bottom of the panels, but part of Tankersley would look like that.
I think that's gonna take care of the no.
So it's more of discussion of letting people know if this went through, you would see portions of this at Tankersley. And anyone who's been out at Tankersley, there's no beach, so this is a clear difference. So, that's all I had on, you can still fish.
Right?
Have there been any estimates from those last two inspections that we got that had a dollar amount that was attached to it? The reason I asked that is because I understand their word.
I was told about that estimate. I don't know where that number came from because all the ones I've had, we've had this designed in 2009, 2011, 2014, 2019. I think the last one was in 2021 was redesigned, but they've always been around $1 million at the most. It just depends on how far extreme you want to go with this. So the lower range is to lower the water because you're just releasing water. The higher range is if you're trying to be nice and you would be creating a dam in front of the dam. So you could leave your water level higher, it would cost you quite a bit more, and then you would have to pump any water that made it through the dam nonstop. So, but it's, even in 2009, I think it was like 300,000. So it's slowly going up, but it's not the numbers that Rob had told me. That the only thing I can think of that number might have came up if we did all 3 dams at one time, and it was just a combined number because we just did the one at the country club not too long ago.
So have y'all talked to Grant Works or AtCog about this to see if we can get any grants or?
Downfall with a dam, there's not many people that do grants for that. One's FEMA, and we just got 2 grants from them, but they're famously running out of money, if everyone remembers all that story a while back. So, but it also took us 6 years to even get those grants. So it's a matter of timing. You don't really want to wait another 6 years and just bring this all back up just to find out you waited for nothing and they said we couldn't get it.
All right.
So, and I believe the River Development Board, I believe it is. I can't remember the real name for it. They do, but they don't give large grants for it. It's just maybe 2 or 3% what it actually would cost to do this. What they would get.
And the cheaper and least expensive and probably safer thing to do is to drain that lake down to where you were talking about, right?
It would lower it probably 3 or 4 foot.
Yeah.
But the lake is shallow, so it would be noticeable.
Yeah. All right. Any questions?
If the lake is drained, because, you know, everyone in Mount Pleasant has heard how shallow it is. And we've all heard how at the bottom of the lake there are pipes and there's all kinds of things at the bottom of the lake. When it's lowered, is there a way that we might go in and try to clean some of that up?
We weren't going to try to lower it that much. We literally were just trying to get to the bottom of the panels, so it wouldn't look as deep as bad as it did in the 80s. They actually had to replace part of a section of it, so you had to dig down below the panels to replace that. So that water level hopefully should be a little bit higher than what those pictures were. There would be sections you could still see a beach, though. So.
When you're doing the dam, do you have any prices on what it costs to dredge the lake out?
I have not looked at any of that part of it.
That's what it really needs. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much sediment in that lake.
Yes.
I'm sure that's very expensive.
I have not looked. Right now, we were just looking at trying to see exactly what could at least get us in compliance with that, just because everyone wants the hazard rating taken off
Hmm.
of it. Because we can't do pretty much anything with it until that rating comes out.
Be something to think about with all the development out there, because I bet you that that's gonna be will be people visiting it more than what they do right now. All right, thanks, Aaron. I was gonna say that, but thank you, appreciate it. All right, so Candace, do you have the city manager's report?
No, sir. No, sir. I will just say, in Rob's absence, that early voting has started and it'll run until the 28th. The 27th and 28th, they will be open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. and Election Day is May the 2nd at the Civic Center from 7 a.m. to 7.
All right, awesome. Now I wanted to talk about our library. I need to start doing this more. They've got their newsletter out there. I hear people talking about what can their kids do around Mount Pleasant. There are tons of programs that they have here on a daily basis. So it's something to check out. Just another resource for you to do with your kids. So, anything? Good. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move into executive session pursuant to Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code. The City Council will recess into executive session to discuss the following: consultation with attorney, Texas Government Code 551.071, and personal matters, Texas Government Code 551.074, to consider the ethics complaint filed against Councilmember Melanie Knight Tafoya and the status of the investigation, consultation with attorney, Texas Government Code 551.071 concerning City of Mount Pleasant versus Ginger Lou Redfern McDonald, cause number 43310, Titus County, Texas. 551.087, economic development negotiations and consultation with attorney, Code 551.071 concerning proposed development incentives and performance agreement between the City of Mount Pleasant and the business prospect. Anybody in the EDC? Are they still here?
That's a city matter.
Okay,
Celeste.
all right, cool. All right, we'll go ahead and convene into executive session. It is 7:29. No action, right? All right, we are resuming regular session, and can I get a motion to adjourn? Oh, do we need a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, I'm watching too many other meetings. All right, adjourn. Oh, no action taken. What's that?
Leave real quick.
Are we?